never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. I married Lisa about 3 years ago, and honestly, she was the kind of woman who could make your head spin with her charm and that easy smile. She looked at me like I was the only one who mattered, and I believed it. We moved into a cozy little apartment, and life, on the surface, felt perfect. But beneath that surface, something was lurking. I just didn't want to see it. Our family reunions were always a big deal in my family. Big backyard barbecues, kids running around, cousins catching up, nothing fancy but full of energy and chaos. Lisa was always a good sport, mingling with everyone, making jokes, blending seamlessly into the crowd. I was proud to have her there, proud to call her my wife. That's what makes what I found so fucking sickening. It started small, little things that I brushed off. A missed call, a text that came through when she thought I wasn't looking, crap like that. But one particular Sunday, during our family reunion, I saw that her phone was just sitting on the patio table, screen up, face unlocked. I didn't mean to look, but I was tired of feeling like I had to hide my suspicions. I reached for it, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw her messaging someone. At first, I thought it was just a friend. But as I looked closer, my stomach turned. The messages weren't innocent. They were flirty, suggestive even. She was calling him babe in one, saying, "Can't wait to see you again." And there were emojis, way too many emojis, like they were trying to hide something. I felt my jaw tight, palms sweating. My eyes darted around, but nobody else seemed to notice what I was doing. I knew I shouldn't have kept reading, but I couldn't stop. It was like a punch to the gut, the way she kept sending these messages, as if she was trying to hide the fact that she was cheating on me. The worst part, the guy was her own brother. My brother. They'd been messaging each other for weeks, maybe longer. I double-checked the timestamp on a message. It was from that morning. That's when my vision blurred for a second, and I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I sat there, frozen, clutching her phone like it was a grenade. My mind was racing, trying to process what I just saw. My wife, my best friend's sister, my family, she was cheating on me with my brother. The betrayal was so thick that it made my head spin. I could feel the blood drain from my face and a cold sweat break out. I wanted to shout, to scream, but I just sat there, holding her phone, staring at the screen that revealed her biggest lie. When she finally came back to the table, I was already trembling. She looked at me with that innocent smile, the one she always used to get her way, but I couldn't look her in the eyes anymore. I just handed her phone back, and she took it, puzzled. Then she asked, "What's wrong? Did you see something?" I looked at her, my voice hoarse and trembling. "Who the hell have you been texting, Lisa?" Her face froze. She tried to play it off, but I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. She stammered something about a joke. Misunderstanding, but I didn't believe her. I told her I saw enough. I saw her messages. I saw what she'd been hiding. The fireworks inside me started to ignite. This wasn't just a little affair. This was a full-blown betrayal, right there at a family reunion, right under everyone's noses. As I sat there, feeling the world tilt, I realized this was the moment everything was going to change. I could confront her right then and there, ruin her reputation in front of everyone, or I could do something smarter, something that would hit her where it hurt most. I knew I had to plan, to think this through. She thought she was clever, that she could keep her secret forever. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without consequences. That's what's coming next. The shock of it all hit me hard, but what really set me off was the way she looked at me after I confronted her. Her eyes darted around nervously, like she was trying to find a way out of the mess she'd created. I could see the beads of sweat on her forehead, the slight tremble in her hands. She knew. She'd been caught, but she was still trying to act innocent. That was the moment I realized I couldn't just sweep this under the rug or pretend it was a mistake. I told her, "Don't lie to me. I saw the messages. I want the truth now." Her lips trembled, and she finally broke down, saying some bullshit about how it was just a stupid mistake, that she loved me and never meant to hurt me. I felt my fists clench. The fake tears, the pleading, none of it mattered. I was too angry to be hurt, too furious to be betrayed like this and just walk away. She was lying, trying to save herself, but I wouldn't buy it. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You think I don't know what this really is? You've been cheating on me with my own brother. How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? She stammered, trying to deny it again, but I knew the truth. I had seen enough. I decided then that I had to do something I'd never done before, something that would shake her to her core. I started formulating a plan. Revenge. Not just a petty fight or some shouting match. I wanted to make her feel what I felt: betrayed, humiliated, broken. The kind of pain that sticks with you, the kind that lingers long after the flames die down. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some fool who could be easily deceived. I wasn't going to let her get away with betraying me, with lying to my face, with sleeping with my brother. First, I needed evidence. I was pretty sure they were still messaging, still sneaking around behind my back. I remembered her phone still sitting on the table, unlocked. I picked it up and quickly scrolled through her messages, looking for anything that could prove the ongoing affair. I found more. I saw the pictures she sent him, her flirtatious texts, their secret emojis. My stomach twisted again, but this time with cold determination. I had what I needed. I knew how to hit her where it mattered. Now I had to decide how to execute my revenge. I wanted her to understand that she wasn't just caught, she was exposed. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, not just for the damage it did to me, but for how it shattered everything we'd built. I also wanted her to see that I was capable of fighting back, that she couldn't just lie her way out of this. I started planning. First, I'd confront her again, but this time with a clear goal. I'd tell her I knew everything, show her the evidence, and give her an ultimatum. She'd either come clean or I'd do it for her. Then I'd involve my brother, make sure he knew the full extent of what he'd done. I wanted him to see what his actions had caused, how they'd torn apart a family. But I wasn't just going to confront them both directly. No, I had something more insidious in mind. I'd set a trap. I'd find a way to make them confess, to get them to reveal everything in front of everyone, ideally in a way that would leave no doubt about their guilt. I'd make sure they paid the price, not just with my words, but with their reputation, their dignity. As I sat there holding her phone, feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins, I realized this was just the beginning. The pain of betrayal cuts deep, but revenge, when calculated and precise, can be even sharper. I was already feeling lighter, like a weight had been lifted, even as I plotted my next move. She looked at me with those wide, pleading eyes and whispered, "Please, just listen. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I looked away. I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. My mind was made up. This game was about to get real. Next, I was going to make sure she understood betrayal has consequences. And I was going to be the one to deliver them. After that confrontation, I knew I couldn't just walk away and pretend everything was okay. She was a liar, and her lies had spun deep into the fabric of my life. The next step was clear. I had to gather everything, leave no room for doubt, and then execute my plan. I needed her to feel the kind of shock that sticks with you, a visceral, undeniable truth that would change everything. I spent the next couple of days watching her, quietly gathering evidence. Every message, every glance, every little thing she did that seemed suspicious. But I also had to be smart. I didn't want to just storm in and throw accusations that make her shut down, hide even more. No, I wanted her cornered, vulnerable, with no way out. One night I decided to set a trap. I knew she'd be messaging him again. I hid my phone, set it to record, and waited. Sure enough, midday, her phone buzzed. I watched her slip it out of her purse and quickly type a message. Her fingers moved faster than I'd ever seen, and I caught every word. I saw her agree to meet him later that evening, saying she'd find a way to sneak out. When she left the house that evening, I followed her at a safe distance, hiding behind a few trees, just watching. They met in a quiet park not far from where we lived. Her brother was already there, waiting with a nervous energy I'd never seen before. I felt my stomach tighten as I watched her walk toward him, her face lit by the dim streetlights. They hugged, and I could hear her laughing softly, too softly, like she was hiding something bigger than just a casual meetup. That moment was the final confirmation. I had everything I needed. Now I had to turn my plan into action. But I also realized I needed backup, someone who could help me carry out the next phase without risking everything going sideways. I reached out to my best friend Tom, who'd been around for years. I told him everything about her, about my brother, about what I was planning, and surprisingly, he agreed. We stayed up most of the night in my garage, poring over the plan. I knew that confrontation alone wouldn't be enough. I wanted her to be exposed in front of everyone, humiliated enough to understand what she'd lost. That meant I had to leak the evidence, make sure everyone knew what she'd done. I wanted the world to see her for what she really was. So I set up a few things. I created a fake email account, one that looked professional but anonymous. I composed a message detailing everything: the affair, the messages, the secret meetings. I attached screenshots, timestamps, everything. Then I sent it to my family, a few close friends, and even my brother, just in case he needed to know what kind of woman he'd been messing around with. The next morning, the fallout was immediate. My phone blew up with calls and texts. My family was stunned, some angry, others disappointed. My brother called me, voice trembling. "Dude, I didn't know she was capable of this. I swear I thought I was just messing around for fun." I didn't bother to reply. I just let the silence hang between us. My wife, of course, found out quickly. She tried to deny it when I confronted her again, but her face was pale, her hands trembling. The evidence was in her face, and she knew it. The look in her eyes was a mix of shame and rage, like she'd been caught in her own trap. I saw her trying to spin a story, but it was useless. The proof was irrefutable, and everyone knew what she was. That's when I decided I'd done enough damage. I wanted her to see what she'd lost, to understand that betrayal like this couldn't be ignored. I told her she had to leave. That night, I packed her bags while she sat in the living room, crying and pleading. I handed her the keys, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "You'll never do this to me, too. Us again." She left that night, her face streaked with tears, her pride shattered. I heard her car drive off, and I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was silent now, colder somehow, like the life had been drained from it. I knew I'd won the war, but somehow I felt hollow. All this anger, all this planning, I'd done it to protect myself, to make her pay. Looking back, it's clear to me now that betrayal cuts deep, but revenge, if done right, can bring a kind of closure. I learned that trusting blindly only sets you up for the fall. You've got to be prepared, patient, and ruthless enough to act when it counts. And more than anything, I've realized that no matter how much you want to punish someone, the biggest victory is walking away with your dignity intact. If you're ever in a similar situation, remember this. Sometimes, the best revenge is walking away, knowing you've won the war inside your own head. That's what really matters. The aftermath of everything hit me like a freight train. After I handed her the keys and told her she was done, I felt an odd sense of relief mixed with a strange emptiness. The house, once filled with her laughter and her presence, now echoed in silence. I'd spent so long planning, so much energy focused on revenge, that I barely had time to process what was left. For the first few days, I kept expecting her to call, to try to come back, but she didn't. Instead, I got a flood of messages from family and friends, some supportive, some angry, some disappointed. My brother called a couple of times, but I dodged his calls. I didn't want to talk to him yet. Honestly, I was still too angry, still too raw. The worst part, watching her leave, the way she looked at me, like I'd betrayed her somehow, even though she was the one who broke the trust first. I remember the way her eyes shimmered with tears, trying to cling to me, begging for another chance. I didn't say anything, just handed her the keys and watched her walk out the door. It was a quiet kind of victory, but it didn't fill the hole in my chest. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the ache. But every night I'd lie awake, replaying the entire mess. I kept thinking, what if I'd done something different? Would it have changed anything? Or was this just what happens when you trust someone with your whole heart and they turn out to be a liar? And then I started to reflect more objectively. I realized I'd been blind for a long time. I saw the red flags, sure, little lies here and there, the way she'd always seemed distracted or defensive, but I ignored them. I thought she was just busy or stressed. Plus, I loved her, and love tends to make us blind sometimes. But now it was clear. The biggest red flag was her secretiveness. The way she hid her phone, the late nights she'd claim were work, the nervous energy she'd carry whenever I got close to her. All of it was a warning sign, and I'd ignored it because I wanted to believe she was different. I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. The thing is, revenge isn't just about making someone pay. It's about reclaiming your sense of self, your dignity. I'd spent so long feeling like I was the fool, like I'd been played for a fool. But that's not true. I was the one who decided to stay quiet, to ignore the signs. I played the game too long, and in the end I noticed too late. Now I'm left with questions. Did I do the right thing? Was it worth all the pain? Honestly, I think it was. Because at some point you have to ask yourself, what's worse? Living with the betrayal or walking away and starting over? I've chosen to start over. No more lies, no more pretending. The thing I keep telling myself is that healing takes time. You can't just erase what's happened overnight. It's going to hurt for a while. But I also know that I'm stronger than she ever thought I was. I refuse to let her control my happiness anymore. I took back my power. Some nights I still think about her, about what we had. I wonder if she ever truly loved me or if I was just convenient. I wonder if her brother ever felt guilty or if he still thinks she's worth it. But I don't dwell on it anymore. I know I need to focus on myself now. The things I enjoy, the people who support me, the trust I'll rebuild in time. Looking back, I see a lot of lessons I'd ignored. Always trust your gut. Don't dismiss the small red flags. And most of all, don't stay in a relationship where you're constantly questioning everything. If you do, you're just delaying the inevitable. One thing I've realized is that revenge, when controlled and deliberate, can be a form of self-preservation. It's about sending a message. I am not someone to be played with. I am not a fool. I deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty. And if I don't get that, I'll walk away with my head held high. So yeah, the house is empty now and the silence is deafening, but it's mine again. My mind feels clearer, my heart a little lighter. I'm not perfect and I don't claim to be, but I'm better off without her. And I know I'll heal. Next step, I'm planning to move on, rebuild my life. But I still wonder, what's the next chapter for her? And more importantly, what have I learned that I'll never ignore again? The days turned into weeks, and slowly I started piecing myself back together. The initial shock and rage had cooled just enough for me to see things more clearly. I realized I'd been naive for so long, convincing myself that I knew her, that she was the woman I married. But those feelings of betrayal and hurt never really went away. They just settled, simmering beneath the surface until I finally decided I'd had enough. One night I sat alone in my apartment, the silence thick and oppressive. I'd been avoiding facing the full truth for a while, but that evening I finally allowed myself to really think. I pulled out her old phone, the one I'd secretly kept after I found the messages. I scrolled through the digital evidence I'd collected, the screenshots, the texts, everything that proved she'd been lying all along. It was startling how much I'd hidden from myself about her, how much I'd ignored because I loved her so much. That's when I made a decision. I'd had enough of her manipulation, her lies, her pretending. I was done being the fool. I wanted closure, real closure, not just the vague sense that I'd been betrayed. I needed to do something definitive. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just hurting. I was done enabling her lies. So I crafted a plan, a final, decisive move that would close this chapter once and for all. I knew I couldn't confront her directly. She'd just deny everything and spin some new web of lies. Instead, I was going to make her see the damage she'd done, publicly and undeniably. I decided to leak the evidence to the right people, people who would give her what she deserved: exposure. I created a new email account, one that looked professional, anonymous enough to stay hidden. I compiled everything I'd gathered, screenshots of her messages, timestamps, photos, even some of her calls with her brother. I wrote a message explaining everything, how she'd lied, cheated, manipulated, and destroyed what we had. I attached everything, then sent it to a handful of her closest friends and family, as well as some of mine. I needed her to see that her secrets weren't safe anymore. The response was immediate and brutal. Friends she'd trusted, family she thought she could manipulate, all saw the evidence. Some called her outright, furious and disappointed. Others just ghosted her, realizing she wasn't the person they believed she was. My brother, well, I wasn't sure he'd ever truly face the gravity of what he'd done, but I made sure he knew I'd seen everything. I texted him directly, telling him the truth, no more hiding, no more excuses. The fallout was swift. She was humiliated, but I didn't care. That was the whole point. My plan was to make her feel what I'd felt: exposed, betrayed, powerless. And I think I succeeded. Watching her crumble under the weight of her lies, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: justice. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but justice for the years I'd wasted trusting her. The next morning, I went to her apartment to pick up the last of her things, just to be done with it. She was waiting in the living room, tears streaming down her face. She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance, but I just shook my head. "You lied to me, cheated on me with my brother," I said coldly. "You think I'm just going to forget that? You're lucky I'm walking away instead of tearing everything apart right here." She tried to grasp my arm, but I stepped back. I handed her the keys and told her to leave. As she packed her stuff, I felt an odd sense of peace, like I'd finally taken control of the chaos she'd created. When she left, I watched her go, her figure shrinking into the distance, and I knew I'd finally closed this chapter. Now I sit here reflecting on everything. I'm not proud of the revenge, no one really is, but I'm proud of the fact that I took control. I faced what I was feeling, made a plan, and saw it through. It's hard to admit that I was naive, that I ignored the red flags, but it's also freeing to accept the truth. Most importantly, I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is walking away. Not with fists or shouting, but with dignity intact. If someone betrays you like that, you don't have to retaliate in kind. Just show them that you're stronger than their lies. That's the real victory. Next, I focus on rebuilding myself. The house is empty, but I'm not. I've got my life ahead of me, and I'll never let anyone treat me that way again. I've learned to trust my instincts and value myself enough to walk away when I see betrayal. And that's the biggest lesson I could give anyone in a similar situation. Stay true to yourself and never accept lies as normal. In the weeks that followed, I found myself in uncharted territory. Alone, yes, but also finally free. The house that once echoed with her laughter and her secrets now felt open, lighter. I started to clear out the remnants of the chaos she left behind, tossing out her clothes, her things, the memories that had anchored me to a life I no longer recognized. Every item I packed felt like a small victory, each one a step toward reclaiming my life. I also took time to reconnect with friends I'd drifted from, people who'd supported me quietly, who knew enough to see through the mask she wore. Their support was grounding, reminding me that I wasn't alone, that I was stronger than I'd given myself credit for. It was therapy in its simplest form, to be surrounded by people who understood what I'd been through and believed I deserved better. One afternoon, I stood in front of my house, keys in hand, and looked at the empty space where she once lived. I remembered the good times, the bad, the betrayals. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. But mostly, I felt a new sense of clarity, like I'd finally gotten a clear view of what I want and what I don't. I walked inside, took a deep breath, and decided to start fresh. I made a conscious decision to leave the past exactly where it belonged. I knew I'd carry some scars, but I also knew I was healing. The pain was still there, sure, but it was receding. Replacing it with strength, hard-won, earned, and undeniable. Looking back, I realized that this was never just about revenge. It was about standing up for myself, reclaiming my dignity after being betrayed. It was about learning that sometimes the only way to move forward is to face the darkness head-on. And I learned that revenge, when wielded carefully, is a tool, not an obsession, but a way to take control of a situation where I'd once felt powerless. Now I'm choosing to focus on me. I'm investing in my passions, my career, and the relationships that truly matter. I don't dwell on what could have been or what I lost. Instead, I work on building a better version of myself, one that's stronger, wiser, and more cautious. And if there's one thing I'd want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your gut. Red flags don't lie, and ignoring them only delays the inevitable. When you recognize that someone isn't who they seem to be, don't hesitate. Walk away. Because true strength is knowing your worth and having the courage to protect it. Betrayal can break you if you let it, but it can also teach you to stand taller. Sometimes, the most painful experiences are the ones that shape us the most. I've learned to see the cracks in my armor not as failures but as lessons, proof that I survived, that I can rebuild, and that I am finally free. Today, I look at the future with cautious optimism. It's not perfect yet, but it's mine. I own it now, and nobody, not even those who betrayed me, can take that away. That's the real victory, walking out of the darkness into the light, knowing I made it on my own terms.